The Western genre has long been a staple of cinema, capturing the rugged landscapes, moral complexities, and stoic heroes of America's frontier era. While Westerns are often associated with action, adventure, and gritty tales of survival, some of the most impactful and memorable entries in the genre explore the depths of human emotion and tragedy. These saddest Western films stand out for their ability to tug at the heartstrings, leaving a lasting emotional impression on viewers. In compiling this list of the top 10 saddest Western movies, we've considered a range of criteria, from films that tackle themes of loss, grief, and the harsh realities of frontier life, to those that feature poignant character studies and bittersweet conclusions. Starting off our list at number 10 is The Writer. Chloe Zhao is a landmark director, and her early, lesser-known works are some of her most moving. Working with real people who experienced the film's story firsthand, Zhao portrayed the lives of several Lakota Sioux people on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. The Writer stars Brady Jandreau as a rodeo star who suffers a near-fatal accident and must stop riding or risk permanent brain damage. The Writer is an underrated Western from the 2010s that more people should see, as it blends the narrative and documentary styles of filmmaking flawlessly. There is not a moment in the story in which the audience doesn't feel deeply for Brady and the people that populate his life. The bright spots of familial and friendship connections, and Brady's pure love of riding and horses provide respite in his darkest moments.
No more riding, no more rodeos. If you don't stop, your seizures are gonna get worse.
Coming in at number 9 is The Searchers. For a Western from the 1950s, The Searchers takes a nuanced approach to portraying Wayne's character, Ethan. While, at first, he's painted as the stereotypically masculine American man who would do anything for his family, the lengths he goes to for the sake of his ego soon grow disgusting and tragic. Though Ethan claims to be chasing his niece, Debbie, to rescue her, it's merely a justification for his violent actions. However, there is no question that Ethan is the villainous anti-hero of the story, and that the audience shouldn't be rooting for him. In seeing the lengths he and the other characters, the audience grasps the brutality of the West, especially when Ethan almost kills Debbie rather than see her remain with the Comanche.
And if you don't hear my first holler, you better read my mind, because I don't aim to raise no two hollers on any subject at hand.
Yes, sir.
Next up at number 8 is The Gunfighter. Peck's character, Jimmy Ringo, is constantly harangued by up-and-coming gunslingers who wish to challenge him and take their place as the next great outlaw. Unfortunately, this prevents him from reuniting with his wife and son. However, Jimmy has reneged on his fatherly and husbandly duties for many years, and his wife is hesitant to let Jimmy back into the life of her and their son. Whether or not Jimmy deserves his wife's forgiveness is of less concern to the story than the consequences of living a life of excitement and notoriety for as long as one can. Of course, just when Jimmy is ready to change, he's fatally shot by one of his young competitors, who hasn't yet learned that life, as the best, comes at a cost few are ready to pay.
Come, I gotta run into a squirt like you nearly every place I go these days. What are you trying to do? Show off in front of your friends?
At number 7, we have The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. No character gets what they want in the entirety of Jesse James, and the narrative focuses on the American idealization of the West and the swift disillusionment with this false tale that follows. The love and idol worship that Robert bestows upon Jesse brings him nothing but pain. Jesse James and Robert Ford were real figures in American history. However, the story is altered to be a clearer one-to-one comparison with the decline of patriotism and faith in the so-called American dream. Ford's journey of realizing that Jesse is not the savior or God Ford thought could be viewed as pathetic if not for the fact that it was a universal experience. As a neo-Western, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford looks back at the legacy of the West and acknowledges the loss that's felt for something that never was.
It's interesting the many ways you and I overlap. You're the youngest of 3 James boys, and I'm the youngest of 5 Ford boys.
Taking the number 6 spot is Paris, Texas. As much as the film is about the protagonist, Travis, and his desire for redemption and acceptance, it's equally about his young son, Hunter, who has barely ever known Travis or his mother, Jane. Though the dialogue is sparse, much comes across through the setting and actions of the characters. It soon becomes clear that Travis was abusive to Jane, and that was the reason their marriage deteriorated, and Hunter lives with Travis' brother. Though the viewer anticipates that Travis is concealing a dark secret, it's an intense reveal after the audience has been rooting for Travis to reunite with Jane and get closer to his son. However, in the end, Travis makes it possible for Jane and Hunter to be together, removing himself and taking the first step towards becoming a better man.
He was kind of raggedy and wild, and she was very beautiful.
Alright, folks, listen up. If you're enjoying the content on this channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give the video a good old-fashioned thumbs up. Let's show the creator some love, shall we? Halfway through our list at number 5 is The Proposition. The Proposition is an excellent Australian Western that tackles the tenuous intersection between familial bonds, the so-called lawlessness of the West, and the devastation and discrimination faced by the Indigenous people of Australia. At the heart of the story is a tale of brother against brother, as Guy Pearce's Charlie Burns is sent to kill his older brother, Arthur, Danny Houston. By the end of the film, Charlie is unrecognizable and alone, having lost both his brothers and much of his sense of self. He's forced to commit equally violent acts as the men he despises to protect himself and free his younger brother. But all his actions are for naught. The Proposition gives the viewer little choice but to care deeply for the few characters who contain glimmers of humanity and care for someone other than themselves.
Word has it, you promised those animals who raped Eliza Hopkins a pardon if Charlie Burns brought back his brother.
Coming in at number 4 is The Great Silence. Directed by Sergio Corbucci, The Great Silence is thought of as one of Corbucci's best films, and one of the greatest spaghetti westerns of all time. It's a bleak take on the genre, but the fantastic performances from Jean-Louis Trintignant and Klaus Kinski as the hero Silence and his nemesis, Loco. The plight of Silence is an enduring sense of sadness throughout the story, as the narrative begins with the slaughter of his family and his loss of the ability to speak. Though he finds some comfort in allies and lovers along the way, Silence's life is defined by loneliness and his standing up to the injustices of the time. Additionally, though it's clear that Silence's fate was always written in stone, his tragic end hits just as hard for the audience after spending the entire film rooting for him.
Si tratta di Tigrero. Ha ucciso mio marito. Ditemi quanto volete.
Breaking into the top 3 is Brokeback Mountain. Equal parts romance, drama, and western, Brokeback Mountain was a groundbreaking film that was an early mainstream depiction of an LGBTQ+ relationship that received great critical and audience acclaim. Starring Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal as the main couple, Ennis and Jack, the movie is set in the early 1960s and chronicles the doomed relationship between the two men who never get the chance to live as their true selves. This prevents Ennis from ever admitting the full scale of his love for Jack until it's too late. Unfortunately, Brokeback Mountain also grapples with the realities of how dangerous it was to be queer during this period, and Jack is killed in a hate crime. It's absolutely heartbreaking on its own, and seeing Ennis' reaction and his goodbye to Jack is emotionally harrowing.
You know, it could be like this, just like this always.
This thing grabs hold of us in the wrong place, and we're dead.
At number 2, we have True Grit. Maddie Ross is left on her own to contend with the brutality of the West when her father is murdered. Though she's just 14, Maddie quickly proves herself to be resourceful and determined to find money, and a deputy U.S. Marshal to track down her father's killer and see him hanged. She never expected that this man, Cogburn, would become a surrogate father figure, and that her life would change even more. Throughout the movie, Maddie and Cogburn are separated, kidnapped, and faced off with the meanest men in all the West, but Maddie's spirit is never broken. It's easy to forget that she's only a child dealing with forces and cruelty that she had never been exposed to before. In the end, Cogburn saves her, but their relationship is not one that can exist outside the open country.
Marshal Cogburn? Can we depart this afternoon? I'm going with you.
And finally, taking the number 1 spot on our list is Unforgiven. In the film, he grapples with his legacy as a Western star and his movie's impact on culture and cinema. His character, Will Money, an extension of Eastwood himself, is an aging gunslinger who saddles up for one more adventure against one of the most heinous villains in movie history, Little Bill Daggett. There are quite a few casualties throughout Unforgiven, and the money makes it out alive. It's not without great cost. There is an air of grief and sadness from the movie's start, as Money is a widower raising his children alone. His loss is almost painted as recompense for his past as a violent outlaw. Even when Money demonstrates amazing feats of skill, it's with a heavy heart, and there are no winners by the conclusion of the story.
You don't look no meaner than hell, cold-blooded damn killer.
I ain't like that anymore, kid.
These 10 films represent some of the most poignant, emotionally resonant, and thematically rich examples of the Western genre. By tackling subjects like grief, trauma, societal constraints, and the harsh realities of frontier life, they elevate the cowboy mythos into something more complex and universally human. Whether grappling with the personal costs of violence, the sorrows of unrequited love, or the disillusionment of the American dream, each of these saddest Western movies leaves a lasting emotional impact on the viewer.